Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the Music Lab podcast. My name is Dogg, and I'm so excited to be back with all of you for another episode of the podcast. Today, we have an interview, a Zoom interview, of course, with Mr. Michael Lasham of Annie in the Water. Welcome, Michael.
Dude, thanks for having me. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely, my friend. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps the bands and artists like Michael that we feature. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters. That's RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear RAR. So, Michael, welcome to the show. How are you feeling? It's Thursday night.
Yeah, it's great, man. I just had a trip through from the St. Lawrence River down through the Adirondacks. So I just got off a little respite between touring and shows. So it's nice. It's a nice, cool night here at my cabin on the farm. So I live on a farm in Schuylerville, New York. So it's nice. It's a good night, good Thursday night.
Well, Michael, you're used to traveling. I mean, let's talk. You were born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. You then moved to Watertown, New York, or outside that area. Then you moved to Jacksonville, Florida, just briefly to record an album.
Yeah.
And now you're in Albany, New York, or in that area, correct?
Yeah.
So,
Band's based out of Albany now. Yeah. So
yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we all like to explore the world, but you've explored it a little bit more than maybe most. So talk about that.
yeah, everything started in 2007 with Brad and myself with the band. But even when I was younger, when we moved from Cleveland, when I was about 12 years old, Cleveland to Watertown, I always wanted to go back and see my friends. So I got used to being like hopping on whatever train I could. Actually, it was like a overnight, like midnight train that I would take from Syracuse, New York. I'd take a bus down to Syracuse, take the train to Cleveland when I was in like 10th grade, all the way through high school and stuff. And so I always got used to, and I'd go on just my own, and I would just go visit my friends from high school. So it was like I'd kind of like be like just wandering around for like a week, 2 weeks at a time down in Cleveland, just bopping around visiting friends when I was. So I got used to kind of like having that little nomadic kind of like live off the road lifestyle when I was in high school. And then after I met Brad in 2007, when we were in college, he had like a red, like, Ram van that we packed all of our shit into. And we rode anywhere. We rode anywhere we got a gig, whether it was a backyard party or a bar, a venue or anything. So just the two of us playing acoustics. We went down south, we went out west, or Midwest, went up to Maine and everywhere. I mean, we've been traveling solidly most weekends ever since pretty much 2007, 2009. Yeah.
So, Annie in the Water, where did we get the band name?
So, we actually, as a band, we have a philosophy. We say Annie is a conspiracy. So we all have this fun way of actually making up different names for the conception of Annie in the Water, if you will. So I'll say that I have an experience with Annie, which was my personal story is my family dog. And my family dog Annie loved the water. She was a water dog, and my family's always been into having dogs, so that could be my own personal prerogative and experience with it. And in due time, different stories will unfold. So
And you just had a dog pass away last week, I understand.
I did. I
Yeah.
did. Yeah, her name was Tess. She was kind of a family dog. And then I came back home to visit. Back in the day, I had gotten done being off the road with Annie and like tried to find different jobs, but with Annie in the Water. And yeah, Tess was like a little puppy, and I just hiked with her all the time, and we bonded, like very much became like companions. And Tess hit the road with us many years and many times all over the country. She's been all over just as far as I have. And then in her later years with arthritis and stuff, we hiked less, we took her on the road less. And but she'd always, like, been with me, or I'd be able to, she'd go with my parents, or I'd be able to have my sisters or people take care of her. But yeah, I appreciate you asking. She was a phenomenal dog and a great road dog, and she lived a very full life, so every 13 and a half years that I had her it was a blessing. So yeah, I love that dog.
So is
So
it too early to ask, like, how long do we wait until we get another one, or is there going to be like kind of a grieving time?
yeah, it's actually been a grieving process, which I want to say thank you to my band, and also Brian Murray too of Dogs in a Pile. I was I had to, during the process, I had always left my dog, like for sometimes weeks at a time, sometimes even a couple months at a time. And she got used to that, but it kind of like created separation anxiety in a way too. But she really kind of understood in a weird way. I don't know how to explain it, but when she was passing, I wanted every bit of my time to be dedicated to that dog, and for her to know I will not leave her until she passed, So she had my undivided attention for the last week and a half of her life, and luckily the rest of the band was completely understanding. And we had a Yasgur's Farm Show in Woodstock, New York, after party, and I had to tell the guys, I was like, I can't go and do it. I had to be with my dog. I would only have 4 more days with her, 5 more days with her. So Brian Murray from Dogs and Piles stepped in and played with them, which I'm super grateful for. And yeah, the grieving process is definitely not done. I went in the Adirondacks this past week just to visit old places that we would hike and camp. So it's I'm definitely still like in a very odd space with not like getting used to her not being around, but also I think understanding and being grateful for like how awesome I had it having her in my life and stuff. And I think it's been impacting my songwriting. Ever since she passed away, I got a brand new guitar in honor of her, and I've just been learning new modes and scale. They're not, or just applying new modes and scales and just practicing. So it's weird how something like that can inspire you in different ways. So I've just been on the road with my guitar in the mountains, just hacking it, just playing my ass off. And as for, there's been other dogs that have been coming, but I had it so good with her. I would have to feel called or have a dog find me to like really say I'm down to get another dog. As of right now, I don't have, it's not in the wheelhouse at all for sure.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of inspirations, who inspired you to start playing music? And then once you started playing music and you kind of discovered, this beautiful world that, we all live in, when it comes to music, like who, influenced you that way?
Yeah. So when I was in Cleveland, Ohio, still, when I was 12 years old, um, we had like Jam 92.3. So I had this really, and Cleveland, like in the 90s, got everything, it would like, even like the East Coast, West Coast feud and whatever, we got everything. We had Cleveland rappers and hip hop. And I grew up on a lot of funk, and I grew up a lot of like the street music, like everything was like Sly and the Family Stone was playing all over the place in Cleveland. You couldn't get away from that. And but when I was about 11, 12 years old, punk and ska like really started coming to the forefront, and I just like was sold. I remember like hearing Blink 182, Damn It on the radio, like just like blew my consciousness of music. Like it inspired me so much. But interesting enough too, my friend Sam Toth, his father was a big like Clapton guy, Jimi Hendrix guy, a lot of Cream, and also just like, and also my dad exposed me to a lot of like singer-songwriter stuff. So my dad showed me like not only the Eagles, but Neil Young and Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, and Three Dog Night, America, like all of that. And then my friend Sam Tolstad showed me like the lead guitar. He was really into lead guitarists, and ironically, it's Mr. Told would never know that down the road, this kid who was his son's best friend would end up being a lead guitarist in a jam band, like a rock jam band. But I remember he had this documentary of Cream from when they played at live at the Albert Hall in London. And I mean, I don't have many memories as a kid, but I remember watching that, and even this section of him talking about his wah pedal and how back in the day they had to like slam it to engage it. And then he showed me like, like I said, Jimi Hendrix. But even one day, my friend Dan's friend Santos' father snuck us into a blues bar in downtown Cleveland, and in the Flats. And there's this guy that they said that he was going to be like the white Jimi Hendrix, but he got like super boozed up and then like found God and lived in a car for years, sobered up, and then played at this like blues bar every Tuesday night. So it was a Tuesday night, and this guy is ripping lead guitar, and he like took the guitar, and there was a telephone, like a payphone like sign, like the flap sign they used to have to like show. Took his guitar and he's running it up against that, and he's playing it behind his back, and this guy was like playing. And then he would, like, in between songs, he would be talking about the Lord Savior Jesus Christ and everything in this smoky back bar of the Flats. And I mean, like, I watched that and I just absorbed so much of that performance. And so the punk rock energy of it, I think the intensity of it really kind of sparked my imagination of like, I just remember listening to Blink-182 and being like, seeing myself, close my eyes and see myself playing like rock music in front of thousands of people, But then my friend's dad kind of had the tools. He had the guitars, and I would just try learning guitar. And luckily, my dad had a Guild 69 D25 acoustic guitar underneath his bed. So my dad would go to work and work all day, and I started sneaking, but he never let me touch the guitar. He had to pull it out of the case, and he was very methodical with it and very meticulous. And then when he went to work, I just slowly started stealing the guitar from his bed, trying to play it, putting it back in the case before he got home and sliding it underneath. And then my mom, like, I think eventually was like, Michael's like playing songs. And my dad one time, I guess, this funny story, he was listening. I was playing guitar and he thought the radio was on, and he was like, who's playing the radio? He came back home from work, and my mom was like, that's Michael playing guitar right now. And my dad was like, what? He's playing. He's like, what's going on? So it's kind of, yeah, it's really funny. I haven't really reflected on all that before. And that's kind of a funny connection, but yeah, that's about as the short and skinny of it, I guess, even though it's pretty worded or pretty long worded. So long, short version of it.
So what was your first concert then that you went to?
Dave Matthews Band at what was then the Pepsi Arena in Albany, New York, and that was about 2000, and I believe that was 2000, and I think that might have been 2001, 2001.
So the Everyday Tour, yeah,
yeah, and he had the opening band was this crazy good funk band. I should know who it is, but it was a funk band that he loved, but they weren't like really that big. But he brought him on the road with him.
It wasn't Robert Randolph, was it?
It wasn't Robert Randolph. No.
Okay.
Man, I'd have to look that up because they were
whatever. That's fine.
Incredible funk band. But yeah, that was great.
Huh. So you and Brad basically kind of got together because of lacrosse. Is that correct?
Yes. So I played in high school, and a lot of my guys in my high school got recruited to play D1 lacrosse. It was a good program that we had. And so when you're in that level, you have like fall ball you have to do. It's your requirement. And it's pretty full on. And so I was at another college. I was playing in college, and like I had mentioned, I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, and one of my high school friends, Ricky Evans, had said, hey, my roommate plays guitar, and he's like, he's got some songs. One of them is called Ohio. You should check it out. And so I think I was a sophomore, and Brad didn't really know it, and I didn't know each other. I would go to visit, and he would go off to like a cappella like hangs, and like I would hang out with the guys, and we'd go party and stuff. And one night we came back. He came back from his thing. I came back. It's like 2 in the morning, and we jammed. And my buddies actually took video of it on like a digital phone, and we were just playing songs, and like everybody in the it was like really cool because everybody in the room was just like, this is awesome, we're and into it. And that was 2006. And so then 2007, I went to Siena College, and I just made it a point to go visit more. We started getting like these kind of shows, but we were on the St. Lawrence River, summer going into our junior year. And he was like, "Hey, I'm coming up to the Ricky's cottage. I'll bring a microphone and we'll just do that." And so it was this Saturday. It was random Saturday. Everybody went on the boat to go out and like party during the day and like hang out. And Brad and I stayed in the cottage, and we just recorded on the fly songs like for hours, like 8 hours straight. And it was just like, and every time we were getting together, I mean, we could record like animals for hours and straight hours and hours and hours. And so we put it online, and the Ohio song specifically, back then when we were in college, became like kind of viral before viral was like a thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it had thousands and thousands of plays, and it went to all these colleges and people, and we didn't know. But we didn't know, we didn't have any experience of touring. We didn't have any help. We didn't have any management or anyone to show us how to do it. So we just got into a van and like got whatever equipment we could, and we just went and played shows, and we kind of learned it by application, really. So
And so what was the first, did you play then your dad's guitar once you started in the band, or did you buy your own guitar?
yeah, I put a Dean Markley pickup like this, like, because it wasn't a electric. There was no pickup. There was no inherently built-in pickup. It was just a regular guitar. So, and I did, but I was just it just first of all didn't give like the body and the push that really needed to happen in the live setting, and also I needed something that I could beat the shit out of, and that guitar was such a prized piece for me, So I just like really didn't want to tour. It's literally sitting right in front of me right now. Like it stays in a case, and I use it for recording and songwriting, and that's it. It is like my baby of guitars. And it couldn't tour with us. It was just, it's too much of and it has a very big body sound. It's kind of difficult to mix. So I ended up getting I think my first acoustic electric was, one of those. Oh my gosh, I don't remember what you call it, or Ovation. It was an Ovation, which was cool because it was like poppy, and I liked it. But
Yeah.
I played much that the bridge ripped right off of it, like just the way I played. And after hundreds and hundreds of shows, it just went to it like pretty much exploded, really. So, and that was that.
So fast forward to today, do you prefer playing acoustic over electric, or does it not matter?
Um, it's totally like depending upon what the context is. I actually really have gotten into like playing. I love bluegrass circles and bluegrass jams. I love Celtic music, so there's a Celtic jam in town that I've gone to and played, and the acoustic is completely the modality. I've played with this band called Eastbound Jesus, which there might be a surprise of that happening at a festival next weekend, which I can't really say much of. But in the past, I played at this Bellstock festival recently, and I played this octave guitar, which looks like a mandolin. It's like, and I played with them, and they play like folky bluegrass roots music, and so that feels much more comfortable. Then I just bought a brand new Fender Highway series. It's those acoustic bodies with the headstock of an electric guitar, and that is it is. I love that guitar. It's actually probably my favorite guitar right now. But when I play live with Danny in the Water, I haven't. I love playing the Strat. It's very versatile. I love to play funk. I love playing funky music. So also I love to shred, and the Strat is the most versatile guitar that I can use for Annie in the Water right now. I may be looking into different custom guitars, but as of right now, the Strat is just rock solid bebop for what I need. So
So we kind of talked about 2007, the origin. Let's jump to 2011. You guys put out your first album, Destination.
Yep.
Talk about that process. Talk about when that realization that when you guys released those songs and that album into the world, that they weren't yours anymore, that they were everyone else's.
Yeah, that's actually a great way of putting it. So, what happened was Brad had finished playing lacrosse, graduated from Hobart, and um, and he was like, "Hey, I got." He had one more year of eligibility, and Jacksonville lacrosse had recruited him, so he went down there for an extra year. I stayed back in Watertown and just I worked as a lacrosse specialist at Dick's Sporting Goods, stringing up sticks, and just being an idiot like a college kid does. And then the next year, Brad's like, "Hey, they gave me a coaching position." I was like, "Well, I'm not going to sit on my ass. If we're going to play songs, we're going to play songs." So I just packed up and moved down to Jacksonville, and um, a local prep school actually picked me up because I played lacrosse and I was a good coach. And so I was coaching lacrosse, he was coaching lacrosse, and in the meantime, we were doing an album at Jacksonville University. Whenever we had like a date, so when we'd get done like coaching for the day, we'd hit the studio like 7, and we would record until all hours of the night, depending upon like we'd usually cut at like 2 or 3 in the morning, and then go to practice the next day. We could do work in the middle of the night. They wouldn't mind if we did work late, so we would do a lot of late night or early morning sessions. And we had the sound engineer was Chris Davis. He was a student there at Jacksonville. And he said, "Hey, my brother is a really good drummer. Do you want him to come up?" Because we had all these songs written, and they were these kind of singer-songwriter songs. But he's like, "This would be great. You kind of need a drummer for it." He's like, "We can make these big." And he kind of came from like Rush and like late 80s like arena rock. So Destination kind of has this like flair of like a lot of stereo mixing and like really big bass and drum sound, which is a great album. So yeah, we tracked it, but we put it out, and we brought the drummer with us, but he was a homebody and he didn't want to do the travel. And we also, Brad and I, didn't have it figured out of like what shows we were even playing. We were just playing at like kind of blues bars and like beach town bar or like riverfront bars and tiki bars in upstate New York. So there wasn't really like a real trajectory, or there wasn't kind of like, so he left. So went back to Brad and I being duos. So that album and a lot of those songs on that album, we only played.
Yeah.
We, yeah, we couldn't replicate them. So we just didn't. And so we ended up hacking it with duo acoustics, and we were releasing all these YouTube videos, which we've actually taken them off of YouTube to rebrand as a full band. And just as of where we're at right now, we're thinking about taking the old archive stuff and re-releasing it. But yeah, from that time period, like what you were saying, there isn't an album from 2007 until 2000 or 2011 until 2019.
Right.
And from which now we've started putting out albums. We just finished a brand new album too. So within a short amount of time, you're going to have a lot of content with albums with us. And Brad and I, just from 2011, we just tried to build it into a band, but we were just taking whatever shows we could get as a duo, playing whatever, wherever. And we went full time with it. We wanted to pay our bills. We didn't want to have any other jobs. So it's the catch-22 of, okay, so if you want to pay your bills and you want to live, and rent and everything, you got a gig. But then it's like, if you want to really build a band, you got to kind of find the right people, curate the songs, go into studio, do all that stuff. And Brad and I were so much on the road as the duo, just trying to make money. We were just picking up multiple shows to just get our name out there, but mostly like generate money just to get the business going, And so we did that for years. And then slowly we picked up players. We picked up Josh West, who's our current drummer now, but he was just playing percussion. We had a bass player that we added on, but then he had other things in his life he wanted to pursue. So he left. We had a piano player, and he was, he didn't want to really commit to doing it professionally as much as we really needed to. So we had a lot of people coming in and going, and just the vision of what we were trying to accomplish is really what we were trying to find. And so over the years, it's, there's a select few people that have really seen what we were trying to accomplish, had the musicianship, but the professional vision to want to do it and the commitment to do it. And, from that, Josh West was our drummer in 2015, 2016, and then 2017. Then we had like kind of a hiatus from another group of members that we had, which was a former bass player and a former piano player, just from all sorts of different things that happened. So we took a hiatus 2007 or 2018 and slowly built the band up, grabbed whatever we could. Luckily, first thing we got was November 2018, Chris Meyer on bass that came into the mix, and just, I love playing with him right off the bat. He could set a big like platform for me to solo on top of, like, or big sound. He's just such a bravado when it comes to playing bass, and such a solid confidence when he plays bass. And I really admire confidence on stage from any player, just expressing themselves, and having when they are confident, I feel very comfortable. And so he kind of came in the mix first. And then, along with Brock Kutza, Brock Kutza, our percussion player, was the first guy that even was a part of it before all this stuff. He was just helping, he just wanted to help the band out. And he just became like ride or die with the band, Brock on percussion, and helping do all of the different kind of lug work and stuff like that. So Brock was sitting in and playing shows either with me or Brad, whenever we needed him or whatever. And then, we brought Chris on, and Brock was ride or die right there. We started incorporating Brock into the mix more and more. And then it was 2019. We were working with different piano players, and Matt Richards on the keys, and which some people nickname him Birdman, but Matt Richards on keys. He came into the mix to kind of fill in, and like we just all kind of could tell that something really cool was happening. Everybody individually in the band. And then interesting enough, our former drummer, who we love, Ryan Trummel, we call him Rippy. He was playing with us from 2018 until 2021, or 2022, with Josh West, our former drummer, coming back in the mix.
Okay.
And Josh came back in the mix, everything really clicked, everything really solidified. And so the past 3 years, we've had that as our lineup, which has just really taken us to new heights, taken us to much larger festivals. And everybody in the band gets to really have a voice. Everybody really gets to write. We have so much songwriting. It's incredible. And I'm grateful for that. But it's everybody's dedicated. And in the world and the way that the music scene is right now, it can be challenging to commit to doing this thing, but each one of those guys they're doing everything to make this thing happen. And it's just something I'm super, super grateful for. So that's kind of the chronological sequence of the band in the shorter sense of it. But yeah, I mean, I couldn't be more proud of them, but also like incredibly grateful that each one of them are in this band. They're highly intelligent. They're highly empathic and sensitive in a good way, and we all have an open communication, and it's a beautiful thing to have a group like that. So,
yeah. When I say this statement to you, I want to get your take on it. So I feel like a jam band, when you do a studio album and the songs, right? The songs themselves are kind of like outlines of pictures. And then when you play them live, that's when you're coloring in that picture.
I have never heard that before, and I really love it. Yeah, I've never that. Yeah, that's actually really beautiful. Yeah, because I think like in a way, each one of us in the band will have a different way of seeing that. Because like, for example, Matt Richards writes in a way that has a very it's a very storyboard driven, but it is a vision. It is like it does have color to it. He has this way of painting, like, he's like he uses a lot of different chord changes and dissonance, and and segments, and everybody else does in their own way as a band. But yeah, that's so true, because you there's only like, say, because it's like, it's you could also say it's like, you can only achieve so much in studio. We try to Our new album, we actually personally feel like it does feel as much of a live feel on the tape as much as possible. I'm really excited for that. It's in the mastering process right now, so we're very close to getting that released and announcing that and everything. But it's it is true, because when you structure these songs and you play them and everything, they're going to live within that context, um and after that, it's kind of like these new paintings on Instagram where people like paint over painting, and then they'll do another painting, like a video, like a quick in video, and then it turns into another painting, another painting, and another painting. And it's so true, because we've been taking these studio songs, and then we're like, well, why don't we build a segue into this other song? Or what if we did this to kind of like change up the tempo of it, or maybe the feel of it? So it's so true. You do build like a context, and that kind of lives in time. But it's like it's almost like planting a seed in a flower pot. It's like it's still the seed, it's still the flower in the plant, but how it kind of extends and grows is just like something where you draw something, but then you color it in. You draw a painting, and then you kind of elaborate on it. So I think that's a beautiful way of talking about it, for sure. It's a really cool way of thinking about it.
Well, and like you said too, with all of you being songwriters or being, adding to the process, each person's picture is going to be different. It's just how you color it then live, like.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Because like you got Chris, and like Chris is a big feel guy. He likes to make sure that things fit, so that there's a feeling, that or a groove. Like obviously he's a bass player, so the groove makes sense. And then you have Brad, who is got a very eclectic way of seeing songwriting, and he's got a very unique way of expressing himself and wanting himself to be heard in a way that he feels strongly about. And then you have Josh, who he sees things in a very universal way. His way of drawing in songs and writing songs is an incredible way of doing it. It's like, Matt might have this really concise story. Josh has a very, hopeful way of seeing the world and projecting a positive worldview. Chris has like a groove and even like an edge, but also he's becoming much more even lyrically, driven, and it's to build a song that matches the lyrical content, a groove that matches lyrical content. And then with myself, it's interesting. I just want the song to be timeless in its own way, but also have some sort of message or a parable, if you will. You know what I mean? They're like, it's like, what's the moral of the story? Yeah, yeah, everyone, it's like this song, each song that I write, if there's some sort of, nugget of nutritional value, intellectual fiber or emotional or spiritual kind of like, I don't want to say gravity, but maybe like, you know, um, yeah, like nutrition or benefit, then that's cool. So we all have our own way of doing it. So yeah, we all definitely paint the picture. We're definitely all our own artists, and Brock also brings a very beautiful kind of like idea with songwritings, with like experience with friends. And Brock loves to tell stories. He's a storyteller, and he's always about, well, what if this? And he sees like the image of something weird that happens, and then brings it into the mix as an idea. And so Brock's a very communal person. He's very much, he contributes a way of the importance of how our songs connect directly to our families and friends and communities and fan base. So everybody in the band is part of the web, but they all kind of contribute this interesting attribute, like kind of segment, if you will. So
Yeah. So for me, I think, I'm 46 years old now. I think the bass is the one instrument that I have grown more fond of as I've become more of a listener and as I've gotten older. You
yeah.
obviously play guitar. you said kind of in this last 3 years, that's kind of really how the band is really kind of formed and like kind of gelled. What other instrument in the band have you kind of felt like you've more appreciated?
Well, so during COVID, Matt Richards had purchased a Prophet, which is a synthesizer, very popular with like your Peter Gabriel's circle, like, 84, 80 to like, it still is very popular now. Like you'll hear a lot of it in like Rufus Del Sol. And that's a great kind of EDM, like trans or like a trap kind of like band that I like. But when he brought that on, that really changed the scope of what we were doing. I brought on a Stratocaster. I was a hollow body guitarist, so bringing on the Stratocaster brought this kind of concise, kind of different style from me that required me to, instead of being a really colorful player all the time with the dual acoustic with Brad, I became a much more pocket player, a much more structured player, but throwing some sort of counter melody or counter rhythm that was accenting it. So bringing the Strat, bringing in the Prophet was really important. Chris also bought a bunch of new pedals. Brad just recently brought a Telecaster. So we've actually, interesting enough, kind of been playing less acoustic, and Brad's been kind of sticking on the he has like a semi hollow body and a telly. So it's really like kind of like a different pen or a different paintbrush, or a different mode, like working with plaster now. So from a duo acoustic looping band to what we are now with, multiple percussion, like percussion setup, and Brock's expanded his percussion rig substantially too. Josh brought an Octopad on now too, and brand new drum kit, and all of those different things. Just like any other band, when you start to evolve and you start to bring on and strive to build and continue to build, it's going to be heard in the music, and it's going to open your ears. It's going to open your sense of what theoretically you want to achieve musically, how you want to communicate musically, how you want to listen. Listening has been very important for all of us. And so, yeah, and sorry, I kind of like really went long-winded on that, but like, yeah, when the Prophet came in the mix, we really started, and I'd always wanted a really cool synthesizer to accent what I was doing, or harmonize with what I was doing, but also take the weight off of it too, because I love, lead guitar and punk rock. I came from that. I love lead guitarists and everything, but I've always wanted to have some sort of transcendental addition to the music, so that the music can always constantly kind of evolve, and each show never has to be the same voicing. Somebody might step up and play better the other show. It could be Chris's show. It could be Brock really plays his ass off one show. I love just seeing things move around the horn, and I think it's good for our listeners. There's certain people that like the percussion player more than they like the bass guy or the drummer. Like everyone's drawn to different attributes. So that it's cool how all of our different voicings and instruments have changed things for sure.
So you mentioned the word transcendental. The place on your hat, I got to experience. When were you there?
I was there this past May, and the May before that as well.
So yeah, we were there end of March for the whatever festival they do there at Teton.
Oh, you're talking about when they do the
Rendezvous, I think it's called.
Rendezvous week. Oh, you went to that?
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Rendezvous weekend. Yeah, Fronti used to do it a bunch, and then was it Zach Brown did it? Who did it this year? I forgot.
We went last year or 2 years ago. So it was the Revivalists, the Wailers, Cold War Kids.
Oh, right on.
It was great.
Oh man.
Oh, Brett Dennen played. I love Brett Dennen. I don't know if you're familiar with Brett Dennen. He's fantastic.
Oh yeah, he just did the run with G Love and Mahali. Our
Yes.
drum. So he played a great set.
Yes. Really tall, goofy looking guy, but man, he can sing.
Oh yeah, great songwriting too. Yeah,
Yeah.
I met songwriting back when I was in like college, and seems like a very kind, gentle soul, you know.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So that's my story.
Oh yeah, no Jackson. Yeah, no Jackson Hole's a very, yeah, it's a. I could probably talk about this. Yeah, so yeah, the 2 years ago we had there was a mushroom ceremony that I did in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and it was incredibly transcendental. But it was interesting because so many little synchronicities like matched up after that, you know. And I had a lot of awarenesses about music and about the band and like about how we connect and things like that. So Jackson Hole, and it was way actually out in the deep country. We went, it was the furthest I was ever from any civilization. I mean, out like a couple hours out, 100 miles within the interior of the mountain ranges, deep wilderness. And we did, we did a mushroom ceremony there. And, I had a profound experience that really kind of made me see music differently, the geometric ability of connecting through music and how you can build strong connections and uh, how important it is to kind of take care of yourself when you go into the mix. So I've definitely had many, many different experiences. Well, I mean, you travel around and play music and play and, whether it's a jam band or whatever, but the lifestyle, if you're open to it and you want to, you, you want to learn more about it, and then also sometimes if you're sucked into it, you can get caught up in stuff, and there's plenty of different things I've gotten caught up in my life. And luckily I have the ability to keep myself centered, which is very important as a touring musician. But it's having experiences on the road or, even particular substances or even just, you know, fucking mental breakdowns or emotional like heartache or whatever on the road. It's like it's one of those things that's so interesting because it's like a jam. It's like sometimes a jam isn't going well, or sometimes a show might not even be going well, or you're trying to find the groove or whatever, and it's uncomfortable. You're emotionally uncomfortable. You're like, I'm trying to get through this, and there's many medicine ceremonies or drugs we've done before or experiences where you're going through and you're like, oh my god, this is really uncomfortable, I'm having a bad time. But then you come out of it and you have so much more awareness, and there's something that needed to happen in that. And I think music is and life in itself, there's, if it's like we kind of work against ourselves, but if we're able to open up and allow the experience to happen and we focus on opening ourselves up more, those transcendental experiences or the uncomfortabilities, if you will, or even the beautiful moments or whatever, they bring you to something new to realize that you have a new platform to kind of go off of. So everybody in our band has had their own unique experiences, if you will, and transcendental experiences maybe or whatnot, which they can speak on to their own accord. But the having transcendental experiences within music on stage for me is like the biggest drug. Like this past weekend we played Brew New York Festival, and it was a fundraiser for a young woman who's been dealing with brain cancer. And I actually advocate for a brain injury recovery and awareness foundation called the Same You, based out of London. And and I had many head injuries playing lacrosse too. So I have an appreciation and a place in my heart for it. And so this young girl, which the Rock Foundation was, raising money for, she's battling brain cancer. And meanwhile, there's a particular person within the festival that is a good friend of mine putting it together, and he's going through a significant health struggle right now too. And we just kind of all kind of like got to this space of just like energetically and emotionally just like focusing on sending like a loving appreciation to these people. And when that happens and people get on board with that and feel that collective energy and intention, there's something bigger than me as an individual, anybody, my band as an individual, anybody in the crowd. And we were able, and like I still am getting messages to this day about how incredible that set was, and the vibe and the festival and the feeling of it and what happened in upstate New York. Like it was truly a very special thing. When we can do those things to kind of like not only take care of ourselves first and do what we can first to stay centered, but then also be available and be of service and open to other people genuinely, like not an ego thing, just like wanting to help people. It's just the shelf can go so much higher, and it was just such a beautiful experience. It really, truly was.
Yeah, I really like the phrase "all ships rise." Like I really believe that, man. Like, what you do for someone, hopefully like can be returned, like you know what I mean? Like it's really part of, and I think we're missing a lot of that in this society that we're living in. So
Yeah, I think people are a little fearful of like what they need to do or what they need to accomplish or their own what's going on. There's all sorts of divisive instrumentations, but that's with our band. Like we just strive to connect and communicate and congregate and allow that moment of music to be what connects people. We don't want to talk about politics. We don't want to talk about separation. We don't want to talk about and not to say that these things aren't important. And I'm not trying to degrade anything that's going on in the world right now, or say it doesn't matter, dismiss it in any way, shape, or form. We just feel as a band, if our intention and we strive to play in a way that pours our hearts out so that people come together and they forget all those things. They don't focus on those things, but they unite in this feeling of unity and joy and just exuding appreciation for life in that moment. We can everybody elevates at that moment, and I totally agree with you. I do believe that too. And even in the music industry, I myself am doing business with the band, but also what the people that we're looking for to work with in the managerial sense, and also associates that we've been working with. We have been building relationships with people that truly look out for the betterment of the artist. They're looking for the betterment of the deal for not only who they're representing, but also in respect and consideration for the venue and the promoters and the fucking stagehands and everybody involved. Those are the people that I want to work with. Those are the people that I think we're going to help each other. We're going to save this industry and help each other by actually contributing in a way that is for the betterment of not just your band and not just your label, not just your deal. It's all of us. And that's where we've been linking up with so many more friendly bands, meeting so many more people that we really appreciate, getting rid of all the vendors and the promoters and managers that are just out there for their own egotistical needs, if you will, which is whatever. I'm not trying to judge them, but by doing that, it's going through the music, it's going through the industry in our own way, and we're building a community, and it's really beautiful to watch that happen. So.
well, and I think you're in the right community, like the jam scene and like the, Americana scene, like it seems like from the outside, and I don't know, like the inside workings and all that, but it seems like there is a definite community feel to it, more so than like in other genres of music. Is that fair to say?
It is. I think they all have. It's so interesting. They all kind of have their own. They kind of all have their own feel to it, because they say the jam band industry too. It can be kind of a double-edged sword because it's like there's so many good things when people get in it and just start listening to music and just start enjoying it. That's what I like, because people just love it. But then on the other flip side of it, you have a lot of people that will like troll and say such negative things about other bands, and I don't really pay attention to it, but I just think that the music speaks for itself. But that happens in so many things. I think you just have people that were driven and algorithmically like kind of showed to like it's so much, we're pushing such a way of like demeaning other people, and it happens in all different industries, so I would be lying if I said that the jam band was a quintessential place for community and love and everything, but like I said, it comes down to being like, my thing too is also this, my prerogative, I can't speak for the whole band on this, but is anybody who's putting themselves out there and working in, like, even you making this podcast and taking the time to do it and putting an effort out there, and even like people who are trying to sing or do comedy or whatever, like like you can't shit on those people because they've got the courage to at least make the attempt. And if they keep going after a barrage of like, people saying crap about them, like those are some of the strongest people in the world, man. Like you got to give them credit. So it's I think any industry has people that are there to just kind of point out all the negatives, but if you focus on the people that support and continue to like grow that, you can evolve your sound so much more. So, and I didn't mean to make that so long-winded because the jam band industry and agency, like there's all sorts of stuff in that I could speak on, but in a private matter. But and for the most part, like I've been finding that people are just trying to it's like it's funny because the power of music is so profound. It's like it'll be all business and numbers and this and that and advocating for this and this and that. And then the moment of the show happens. And for this time being, everyone floats on air. Even if the numbers are shit, I've seen promoters to the moment of the show be so focused on the numbers and the room's not even full. Like they know they're losing their hat and they're going to sit there and just be smile on their face being like, wow, this show is kick ass, man. And like that's like the thing that you can't quantify. That's the beauty and the magic of music is that it has such a reactive energy to it that kind of transcends, if you will, kind of the mundane and everything. But I will say, as somebody that is in a band, I want everybody to do well. The business side of it is very important too. It's a very crucial part of it too. You got to make sure that, and we're trying to get better with that every day. We're currently looking for management to just take that so that we can focus solely on music. So that's a reality of it too. I'm not trying to say everything is, peaches and cream and peace and love and flowers and psychedelics, because it's really not the case. There's a fundamental business aspect to anything that we do in our life, whether you're selling hotcakes or, you're a barber or a vendor or a musician.
So I have to ask you because I think I know the answer, but I want to hear it from you. The balance between art and commodity. It's such a delicate balance. How do you try and walk that tightrope?
Yeah, I don't have a perfect answer for that, because it's because I've come into this, and like just like I was talking about with like my dog, and then also like hanging out with my family more. Um, I have worked with Annie in the Water now every day, putting everything I can into this thing every day for around 18 years now. And I've ever since my dog passed away, who's with me for a substantial amount of time, and I'm spending more time with my parents, my family, and friends, the priorities are starting to shift. And the fact of personal life has come into the mix more than just art and commodity. I see the value of my personal life, my friendships, and my family as such a heightened value system too. So that is starting to influence the blend of the commodity and the art. And the way that I've found the best way of balancing it is as being as communicative as you can with your bandmates, talking with your bandmates, seeing what they feel about our music, how they build confidence. And everybody in this band is incredibly intelligent. They also are very savvy with the business side of it too. Like they understand it. They get it. So, and with Annie in the Water, we've represent ourselves as well, business wise. So we have developed a particular function as a business. We do know the business side of it. So from a business side of it, a lot of it is knowing your value, knowing your markets, knowing also what you're willing to put in, what the amount of energy that goes into something. So a lot of it is like recognizing and seeing what your value is as an individual, whether you're a solo artist or a band, and then also the fundamental money that it takes to produce it. We've taken a lot of shows just because we knew that it's good, exposure. And only until recently we've been like, obviously there's exposure there, but we're going to have to run across a state like this. It's going to take this much time, that much energy, this much money. And is that really, really worth it? And we've been passing on shows, which are a tactical way of doing it. You know, you're saying, as much as that might be important, it's different, but also it's like, you know, developing merchandise and social media and everything. Those are avenues where I'm going to be totally honest. We're looking for management to really assist us with that. You know, we've gotten us to this point now, but we're at a level of playing larger national festivals, touring more markets, new album coming out. You know, we just we had a big feature, and right up after our Northlands festival, which really kind of changed the game of stuff. And so I have an awareness of what that balance is, and I do every day, but it shifts. You know, it shifts on how I feel comfortable in my own skin, and how I talk to my bandmates and what their comfortability is and what they want to do in the future. And you know, you just want to make sure you're in communication with your people and see what they're comfortable with. You know, and making sure that people are heard, and that's a good way of balancing your value, you know, your personal time, knowing your value and how you deliver that value.
Are you referring to the Rolling Stone article?
Yes, yeah, that feature, uh which we are super grateful for. And Garrett, the writer, he's been so great in advocating for us and following us and really giving us a platform after he's seen us kind of grow. And yeah, it's just been beautiful because it's started to, it's there. You can see that there's an investment in our time and started to, you know, show different things happening. So, which is really cool. You know, you see that and it's kind of a surreal moment. You're like, oh wow, that's really incredible. And then it's like the flip side of it, it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do with that? You know, what are we going to, it's like now we're more hungry than we ever have been. Now we're like, well, now we really have more show, and we want to show that. Like we really are very hungry and very driven. And we also know that it's like, okay, well, that's now it's like, okay, now we've met that bar. It's like, what are we going to do next? What are we going to show them next? What are we going to create next? What are we going to build next? You know, so they're kind of like milestones. It's, you get there and you're like, oh wow, that's really cool. Well, what's next? I mean, it's an infinite new playing field again, and it's so incredible when you can do that. And I'm lucky to have Annie in the Water, that I can strive to continue to build something that's much larger than myself, and continues to build and has so much potential to build even larger. So it's an exciting thing.
Yeah. It's funny because you talked about earlier, as you know, with the band, you know, you don't want to ever involve politics. I wish Rolling Stone would take that advice as well. Like, you're a music magazine, and like they lost me like a while ago, and I, you know, every once in a while I come across an article of theirs that's decent, but like I met David Frick. Like,
Yeah.
he like meant like the world to me, like as a music writer. And so when I got to meet him, because we go down to South by every year for in Austin to cover that, and so I got to meet him. This is probably like 7 or 8 years ago, but like the nicest guy, and like talked music with me. I mean, we probably talked for 20 minutes. Like, it was great. Like, had no problem talking to me, and he's instantly recognizable. But like after he left, I feel like that magazine just kind of went downhill a little bit. And yes, to your point, like, yes, they're a national magazine, so yeah, any exposure they give you, it's great. But like, and this isn't your opinion, but for me, it's just like, man, like, just can you guys stick to the music? It's almost like MTV. Like, it'd be great if you stuck to the music.
Yeah. You say that. I think that's why you should check out more articles written by Garrett, who had written the article, because he's and that's why I really appreciate him very much, is because he is very much a soul of, he's a product of you know, North Country music. He's a roots driven person. He's a North Country guy like myself and the rest of the band, but he loves to communicate with the musician. He's great at doing it. he, just like what you're looking for right now, that it's like, what is the thing made up of? What's the music made up? What's the backstory behind it? What that makes the music what it is? And I highly encourage you to watch his articles, what he writes, because he's so driven by the culture behind it. He's a great person to check out. And I think, in this day and age, there's the algorithms and the way that things have been built up. There's I think some people feel the requirement or the need to keep up with trends or sell or also write certain articles with. There's a lot of different interest groups and people paying lots of money for publications, which is kind of funny because when we were younger, though, it was artists and or authors and everything. They were writing about stuff because they were inspired to write about this thing that happened in this experience. And they saw it and they wrote about it because it was print, and people didn't see pictures. People weren't at those shows. Now you have people with a cell phone that, and not only one, but dozens, if not hundreds, that just film it and upload it on YouTube. So the mystique of this moment that these people had at these shows, it it kind of it's that's kind of the imagination that gets to go, and that's kind of like that's kind of like what I think we can get back to as a human race and a species is the power of the imagination. The power of sitting and talking with somebody and not having to look at the phone and be like, see this on Google, like the moment that you share with somebody and you tell them a story, and like I said with Brock, it's that ability to hear that story and picture yourself in that person's like body or the weirdness of it or the funniness of it or the depth of it and the feeling of it. It's like a native way. That's where, like, the natives and where this country has been built off of lineage and folklore and legend was passed through the word of speaking, and the sacredness of passing that story, so that the pureness of the story, the energy of the story, the emotion of the story, the impact of that story was then passed down in a very sacred way. You had certain storytellers, people, shamans or chiefs or characters of power and leadership and good character would share these stories. And when those stories happened, people sat and they listened. It was presence. People were present for it. And I think there's so much that is striving to take our attention and take our ability to sit and be present. And it's things that the algorithms and things like that, they're built off addiction. They're built off of statistical processes of engagement and virality, that's a reality of what it is. And so I'm not going to ignore that and say that it's an evil thing. It's not. It is a byproduct. It is a geometric process of what we're living in, and there's positives to it too. If I think done consciously, I think there's so many good things about that. I think we're just all as a collective trying to build our identity and find our identity with that. And what Rolling Stones is doing is they're covering a vast, highly changing generation, and they're doing whatever they need to do to function as a business and also function as a cultural, input. But like I said, follow Garrett. I think you'd love his articles. I really think you do. Just like this conversation we're having right here, there's a character to it. There's a depth to it. He is striving for the details that make somebody follow the musician, and he writes about it in a very poetic and story driven way. And so, kind of long-winded answer, but the power of the story and telling the story is, I just think, so important. And that's what I love about our music as a band, but also having conversations after a show with a fan or a person in the scene, and they tell you their story like this, or working with production or a lighting guy, or like just a random dude that is like volunteering or something that saw Fish in '96. There's so much shit that you can, and you just like, we're like, wow, what a story. And like, it's great. But this is great that we're telling stories today.
So it's kind of ironic because you said that your first concert was Dave Matthews Band, which
Yeah.
and my first concert was Radiohead.
Oh, Rick. Love Rick.
So yeah, it's quite ironic. But so my question for you though is you've gone to obviously plenty of concerts now in your day since 23 years ago, since that first one. How often do you think about that when you're on stage playing?
That it's really interesting. I mean, I've kind of told people this too before, and like not in an egotistical way. Like, what would it be like if I was able to, in a complete third party manner, like watch myself on the stage in a completely separated consciousness, but it was still my own consciousness of perceiving that, which I think is a good thing that I can't. Because sometimes actually in interviews I look and watch them back, I'm just like, oh man, I didn't want to say it like that, or it's like it is what it is. But when you're in the, I I think when you're playing or when I'm playing a show, um, man, yeah, it seeing when I watch other bands do what they do, I think that's one thing that inspired me to go and step on stage because and I've seen it happen before. There's some artists when I watch a show and I'm sold. I am like, I got every dollar out of that ticket, and what they're doing on that stage is pure. It is purely coming from their heart. Like their soul is speaking. And then there's other bands that I watch, and it looks like they're mailing it in. They're waiting for that show to be over. They're going through the run of the set list because they're on tour because they need to make money. We even played for this huge band. I don't want to obviously throw them under the bus, but a very large national touring band, international band. And we opened for them. And, I'm with the promoter who's a good friend of mine. And we're in her office and we're just talking. And the lead singer comes in the office and he's just like, oh man, talking with the family and everything, and I'm just like, trying to tell him like, well, I'm on the road. I'm trying to help them out. And, they're just got to calm down. I'll be home soon and everything. And I was like, well, yeah, like, you're on tour to take care of them. And he was like, exactly. And it was so clear. It wasn't like his energy was just so focused on generating money for his family while he was on tour. And, is like, and it was like, we didn't talk about anything about the excitement of the music. Like, we didn't even talk. I didn't even tell him, hey, your music inspired me to play music too. And like, right. And it's just such a, and then you see other bands like, I mean, we'll be backstage and we play with them and whatever, and they're on their phones and it's like, oh hey, they could care less that you're even in the room. They could care less that they're even there. It doesn't look like they want to be there. But then you have these other bands like we opened for Michael Franti, and I mean, he doesn't have to say anything to us. He jumps off stage, he shakes every one of our hands. He gets done with his sound check and he starts playing acoustic guitar on the side stage for these two girls who had special needs. And they came to visit him for a charity. And like what he does, like he's striving to achieve something. And I think there's something to be said for that. It's like music has such an ability to do that.
Mhm.
And we shouldn't take it for granted while we're here. Each stage, even if you're not playing the best show, like, because this is kind of a thing from lacrosse, and I tell people this too, and is like, leave it all out on the field. I don't care if it's a private party, I don't care if it's a fucking coffee shop, I don't care if it's a fundraiser, I don't care if it's a massive show, or anything. It's like people are there to watch that, and there's a unique opportunity there to create something special so that that person gets it and they get to walk away from there and with a feeling or even a story of being like, I went to that show, whether it's Annie in the Water, other bands, or at Annie in the Water show, and it was just this and that, and they have their own perception of it, kind of coming back in full circle to what you were saying, like, how I play and how I emote myself, like, it's so different from each show. It's so many different things. It's about how I regulate myself. It could be the amount of energy that I have, but I'll still go and put it out there, and depending upon how much I have, or it could be about what's going on in my life or what the intention of it at the event. And there's so many aspects. That's why I also don't want to throw any musicians under the bus, because some of them might be going through an emotional thing and they do just want to be on their phone and be alone and be like, don't talk to me, I'm actually not well right now, I'm not comfortable right now. So that's something to respect as well. We're all kind of maneuvering this life in our own accord and trying to find love as best we can, I guess you could say. So But when I would watch those shows that were really good, it inspired me. And then when I saw shows that I didn't think that they were very motivated, that inspired me as well to be like, well, I want to be on a fucking stage then, and give me the chance to go. It's like put me in, coach, I'm ready to play kind of thing, like that was a very real thing too. I would see certain shows and I'd be like, man, I just want to jump on stage and just up the energy, but that's also a naive thing that you grow out of when you get older. So
So, who would you say in the band is the comedian, and who in the band is like the warrior?
I think those archetypes definitely move around, man. They definitely move around. Um, eh, because there's been, I mean, Chris and Matt I mean, everybody is like, we have such a weird language. Like even Brad will sometimes like say something which is like a dad joke. Like Brad is like got the bit like most cheesiest dad jokes that really slap sometimes. But I will have to say, just Chris is sometimes gets into a mode, and it's just some of the funniest shit you've ever heard in your life. But I mean, just like I said, like Josh throws like gems out there that'll get you stitched up. But Matt has this like sneaky comedian vibe to him that you're just like he'll tell this story, you're just like, oh my God. And then just like Brock will tell a story or like show me things, and that it's just so hilarious. I think, oh, like a warrior spirit. I definitely have to say, like, and recognize Brad Hester. I mean, that kid puts physical work in, hours, and he is so driven to accomplish things for this band, and I definitely want to recognize that. And everybody in the band's grateful for that. His passion to succeed is just substantial. And but at the same time, like, everybody in their own right has that in this band. I think everybody's a warrior when you don't know what you're stepping into or walking into,
Mhm.
and you show up anyway, without a doubt, without a question. All these guys in the band, I wish I could give them $1 million every fucking show. They deserve it. But that's not the reality of it. But they show up and they throw down every show, and I think that it takes a warrior to do that for sure. And I think each one of them in their way is definitely that. Absolutely. I think so. I think everybody can be it. But like I said, the influence of the comedian shifts, and I think also in a warrior aspect, um, there's certain people that will pick the other person up when they're down. Like I had to leave on the road. I had to take care of my dog, and I rarely ever, if ever, miss a show. But Brad stepped up playing lead guitar for me, but everybody in the band had to step up and be a trooper. Without their lead guitarists there, they all still showed up and played the shows. Like, they could, like, that's the confidence I have in that band. And I, like, a lot of other bands would probably cancel. They'd say, oh, unfortunately, like, due to circumstances outside of our control, we're not playing the shows. And I was like, I first of all was totally down for them to do the shows, and they were totally down to do the shows. That's like, they had no fear. They were not thinking, oh, maybe we can't do it. No, they fucking crushed it. And that's a warrior mentality. So everybody in the band very much has that for sure.
Well, I would guess too, living in Watertown, New York in the wintertime would probably give you a little bit of warrior mentality too.
Yeah.
Share with the audience like what winters are like up there.
Yeah, well, they've changed, man, and it's been weird seeing it happen in real time. But when I was, 11, 12, well, like 12, when I first moved there, 12, 13, 14, 15, I could tell because I was really into snowboarding. So I was out there in snow every day, but we would get and building jumps and building and stealing fucking steel piping to make rails and everything. And I was out there every day snowboarding for grade school up until high school. And I did, when I was getting recruited with lacrosse, I had teachers literally tell me to stop snowboarding as much as I did. Which is funny now because now I play music professionally and I snowboard all around the world. So yeah. That's what. But the snow. I mean, it was so much snow, and it'd be so cold. We'd get feet of snow starting in even November, late November, and it would stay, and it would leave in April. Um, it's been different now. It kind of rains and everything, but it's still blistering cold. But I mean, when I was like younger, it would be, I mean, we'd be out there fully wrapped up and it would be -10. I'd be snowboarding out there with, all the boogers in my nose and spit, just like dry, like icicles, literally. Um, so yeah, and then also I think we toured all the time too. So we tour like in the upstate New York playing shows in like January, February, where it's -degrees outside and we're loading in metal and equipment. And yeah, we've done that for a very long time too. So but that's like, I think for myself, I love to be outside in the cold because your body shifts, like your bioengineering and mechanics, your adrenaline shoots through the roof and you start doing things like Annie in the Water itself. We played a show this past January or last January, and it was I think it was like 15 degrees outside. And one year we played a Friday and a Saturday for a ski jump. And the first night we had to play for an hour, and it was a hard -12 outside. And the heaters broke for both the shows. So it was hard. It was literally -12 degrees outside for the first night. And then the second night, it was -10 with a -18-degree wind chill feeling. So negative. So it was like, and it was windy. And so it was like -20. And we played another hour long set. We didn't shorten it or anything. And yeah, but it's like, I think it's just a testament of the challenge of what the body can do, the human body can do when you get to those modes, like, and it changes. It's exhilarating. But it's also dangerous. I try not to play shows in the cold, especially it's damaging to equipment and our percussion players. It's not good for his fingertips. I had nerve damage in my ring finger for years, actually, from playing on a frozen steel plate of guitar. So I strive. We don't try to do that any longer, but it'll definitely get you strong. You'll definitely get some tough skin for sure.
Yeah, you might be the band that's played in the coldest temperature. I mean,
I don't know. It'd be interesting. Yeah, I know I don't know many bands that would play the show.
yeah.
It was a lot of money, and they were lodging us up. I got free snowboarding passes and everything. Yeah, and plus it's like that was one of those things. It's like the show must go on kind of thing. I'm such a believer into that, sometimes to a fault, but you can somebody it's like, because if you don't do the show or whatever, then it's like you can lose momentum of people, and it can be inspiring to do it. So
Yeah, you do it right. So what's your favorite mountain to snowboard on in this country?
Whiteface for sure. It's just very steep pitch, very fast. It's my home mountain. But I love I skied Ajax in Aspen on a powder day a couple years ago, which it's got a lot of pitch to it too. And that was incredible. Like, that much deep powder, fresh powder in such a, technical mountain was really, really cool. I'd skied Jackson Hole, but it was really dusty. But I don't know if it would be my favorite mountain. I think just Whiteface, because it's so comfortable for me. It's so easy to get to, and it is such a technical mountain, Whiteface. And it gives me, I'm very much adrenaline junkie. So like, it's like easy for me to get to. I can get there in a day, so that's probably why. But I loved skiing Jackson when I was out there. I've loved skiing Killington. Also, the vibe in the town of Killington is awesome. So we're playing Cooler in the Mountains this Saturday there, which is going to be great. So yeah, it's a great town. Dark Side Snowboards always is good people there too. So shout out to Dark Side Snowboards, gotta say it. So
And the Pickle Barrel too.
Pickle Bear is a sick venue. Love that, dude. That's a party box, man. And we do well there. We get good crowds there. So it's all of our old people. Brad and I started playing duo acoustics there. We'd have to play every Tuesday from starting in December and going all the way until March 17th. Brad and I would play every single Tuesday. And so if it was a huge snowstorm, we drive through it, show up to Vermont and play the show. And then if it was snowing that much, we'd go and snowboard the next day or something. But we were playing so much, we'd have to play that show, go back home, and no, we were all over the place. But we built up a good community that way.
Yeah, I've skied Killington, but it's been since college. We've done when we went out to Colorado right before the pandemic. I got to do Loveland and I got to do Winter Park, and I
Oh,
actually liked Loveland a lot better than Winter Park.
and
They were like 13,000, I think, 15,000. Like it was, you're up there.
yeah, yeah, no, you totally. So did you like what's that one mountain over by Buffalo where that the balloons venue is? Do you know what I'm talking about?
No, in Boulder?
Was that no, I'm sorry, now around Buffalo, ski resort.
Oh.
Something Valley, like Holiday Valley or something.
Yeah. Not Hawk. Is it Hawk Valley?
I don't know. I should know this, but I've had a lot of people tell me to go and ski over there by Buffalo, and there's like a venue balloons or something like that. So
Okay,
I'll check it out.
gotcha. Yeah. So yeah, Buffalo's about 5 hours for us. So like
Oh wait, where are you based out of?
Lancaster, Pennsylvania, Lidditz, Pennsylvania, where Rock
Oh,
Lidditz
that's
is.
bad. My bad.
Oh, you're good, man.
Yeah.
Have you ever played like Philadelphia? Like
We played Philly a long time ago in a frat house for UPenn.
nice.
That was funny. It was Brad and I and our keyboard player. We were doing that and then driving over to like Delaware. Oh my God, that must have been 2014 or 15, 2015, I think. And it was such a rowdy party, and we had a light bar. We had just gotten this 4-panel light bar, and these drunk kids they fell over, and the thing fell over. And I was like, I got mad, and I was like, you guys, if you want us to play one more song, you better not hurt any of our equipment. And I grabbed the biggest guy in the room. I go, you right from these lights. The other guy go, you right from the speakers. And I was like, this is our last song. And they're like, yeah. So, and I had to like stop the show. I'd be like, stop fucking around. I was like, you're gonna break our shit. And it was in this frat house, and it was just an absolute it was the UPenn lacrosse team. They were great dudes, real good dudes, and it was a rowdy, rowdy night. It was that. Wow, that was a long time ago. That's funny.
That's great. Yeah, I imagine lacrosse players in college can tie one on.
Yeah, yeah. Oh no, yeah, lots of very, very big parties, many big parties.
Yeah. So let's talk about some festivals that you have played already, and then we'll talk about some festivals that yet to play. First of all, I want to talk about Memorial Meltdown. Obviously, Memorial Day weekend. Who was part of that lineup,
Yeah, that was a great lineup. Mallet Brothers out of like Portland, Maine area. Great guys. Love those guys. Rhyme on Blue, who's awesome singer songwriter. Love Rhyme on Blue. He's a good friend of the band. And then the Revivalists were headlining that one as well. And then the day that we played was Annie in the Water, the Samples, which Samples are awesome. You know, I'd been listening to them since I was a young kid. And then it was Mahali's band, which also included Gub from Twiddle, but Adrian on drums and Bufundo and Omen on the horns with Scott Henne on the keys. And that was amazing. Really, really great. And they had me actually come sit in, and I actually played 41 with them by Dave. Yeah, yeah.
nice?
Yeah, I
That's
got
awesome.
guys if they got video of it because that was a really cool sit in. I'll have to see if they got a full length of it. But
Yeah. How long was
yeah,
this? How long did you play it? Like 10-minute version? Like what? How long did you jam
no,
it?
actually we kept it pretty tight. We kept it the live version from Chicago, which like with the horns solo. So the horn solo kind of bring it back in, and then we dropped it down. So we didn't have a lot of time on it, but I just sat there because Mahali's like, yeah, and he was like talking with the band. I was backstage with them, and he's like, yeah, well, yeah, for 41, like you do this and do that. And then I was like 41. I was like, dude, I was like, you gotta have an acoustic guitar if you're playing 41. And he's like, okay, yeah, they'll run the DI box out for him, and like just walks away, like, so that's his way of being like, yeah, you're sitting in, then you're gonna, and Mahali had never asked me to come sit in with him. I've shared the stage with him many times when we played with Twiddle, like him sitting in with us, but that was the first time him being like, I'm bringing you on to play with me. It was just, it never happened with me. It just happened with Brad mostly, and like Josh and other members of our band, but that was the first time. So to play 41 with Mahali, opening essentially the slot right before dispatch, was such a overwhelming experience. Like I got off the stage, and ironically, the DJ who played in between all the bands is one of my good friends, and he actually had me borrow his snowboard equipment this past May, only a week before I played the Memorial Meltdown. So I was snowboarding on the mountain, like booting up. All the places were closed, but there's plenty of snow, so I like hiked up and snowboarded down with his equipment. And then a week later, here I was getting off the stage after playing with Mahali, and I was just like so emotionally overwhelmed. I'm just like hugging him, crying, you know. I'm like, what a full circle. But I right before Chadwick got on stage, like about 20 minutes, I just went up to him. I was like, hey man, look, I know you get this, but I just really want you to know that like I got your album when you used to play at St. Lawrence at this small little venue there. And I got their CD, the hard disc, you know, when I was in 8th grade. And I was like, I just want to know, like, I started learning rhythm guitar of acoustic and songwriting based off of a dispatch rhythm patterns. I learned a lot from Dave Matthews Band rhythm patterns and dispatch rhythm patterns. It ingrained in me how I play to this day. I mean, it's like core fundamentally how we play, you know. And so he was super appreciative, gave me a hug and everything, and was like, thanks, man, really appreciate it. And then I met their new guitarist and keyboard player, really cool guy. We talked a little bit. And then one of the guys actually from Cleveland, Ohio, which I was pretty stoked about. So that was cool. But then after the show, I was just like, you know, fuck it. I'm just going to go in the trailer. So I went in the trailer and I was like, hey, great show, guys. I just wanted to say I really appreciate it. Great show. Been a fan for a long time. And Brad was like, oh, wait, what band were you in again? And I was like, Annie in the Water. And he totally was kind of opening it up to have like a conversation, but there was already so many people in the RV. I kind of was like, all right, I'll see you later. And like walked out. And I was like, Bradigan was like literally opening up the conversation. I just was like, all right, see you later. I was like, shoot, I should have stayed into that one. But but also their manager was she was very protective of the band. So I just didn't feel comfortable with I didn't want to overstay my welcome. I made it brief. I was like, I'm an okay person. And then I just kind of moved on. So it wasn't like a long hang, but I was able to show my appreciation for the band, which was great. Memorial Meltdown was a very special festival for me. And that kicked off the summer. It was like, holy shit, you know?
Yeah, and then next you had Northlands, what, 2 weeks after that, correct?
Yeah. And we had played really well at Memorial. Like we played a great set. We brought a lot of energy to it. The production team was super stoked. So we were riding on a high. So when we went into Northlands too, originally we were supposed to be Friday at about 1 p.m. in the afternoon, and it would have been conflicting with Magic Beans, who we've toured with, and they're based out of Colorado. So we're like, and they're our friends. We're like, I mean, shit, if we're here, we'd like to be over there watching their set. And, you know, like we also don't want to be playing while it's our same fan base. And so it happened only a couple weeks before. Northland switched us because another band dropped in a weird way, but they had to fill a slot. And they were like, well, they gave us the Thursday night sunset set for a 2-hour set. So we went from being a 1-hour set to a sunset Thursday night evening set on the Switchback stage for 2 hours straight. And we just like got on stage and we just ran with it. We were so excited, but we just poured our hearts out into it. And it filled in well. And then by second half, it was just, you know, shoulder to shoulder. The entire segment was filled with people. And it was such a huge boost for us. You know, people were so stoked. The energy was super high. We played our asses off, and that was so cool. And after that, it was just, we got to hang with everybody and everybody else in the band. Like I said, we had the RV there. So that kind of became a congregation zone. So people knew we were there and people were talking about the sets. There was a buzz, and everybody had artist credentials. So they were able to go and hang out with, you know, people like Matt Richards, our keyboard player, Goose used to open for his band that he used to play with Formula 5. Yeah. So he knows all the Goose guys, like he's friends with them. So he's backstage, Goose guys. Yeah. Well, Goose opened for Annie in the Water in 2017 at Nectar's. Goose was their trajectory was very fast right before COVID, like a year and a half, 2 years before COVID. They just hit that stride, that people in the jam band scene always wish for. Um, but but yeah, he got to hang out with them and Josh and Brad and everybody just got to go around. We had Casey who helps do facilitating for Dogs in a Pile. He was with us to help like TM, and he did a phenomenal job just helping us do all the small things. And he hung out with the band, and it was such a community vibe. It was just everybody being able to talk to different band members and stuff. And like I said, I had only done that one night. I had left actually the next day so I could catch a flight out to Denver to go to Parcels at Red Rocks, only because there was the only show they had in the States. I had to take I had to take the ticket. But I would have otherwise stayed and hung out. But everybody had nothing but great things to say, and it was Northlands is a very special festival. I want to give a shout out to Joel McKenzie and everybody in the staff there at Northlands. They do such a good job of that festival. It's really a challenge to be a successful jam band festival in this market of the Northeast and the country, and they just have their shit together. They do everything right, and they did a great job.
Yeah, Goose. It's that band. I have really fallen in love with them. Kind of I kind of got late on the train with Fish. I only really got into Fish about 5.5 years ago, 6 years ago, and I've seen them now 4 or 5 times.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
but it's ironic to me, or not ironic, but it's just strange to me to see how the jam scene has kind of, you had your forefathers of Widespread and Fish and, Mo and Umphreys and all those bands. And now you're finally starting to see, because like they kind of held like the mantle for a long time. And now like you're seeing Goose now, you're seeing Dogs in a Pile, you're seeing Houseplant, you're seeing you guys, like, you're seeing these other bands that are like start Eggy, like
Oh yeah.
it's this next wave of, like that are almost kind of like carrying the torch. Like, how do you kind of look at that as well?
Yeah, I would have to totally agree. I mean, and the one thing that's really cool too is those bands like in that early, 2000s jam scene, when there's obviously that hiatus with Fish, like other bands kind of came through the mix. But Mo is from the North Country, and we love those guys, and they're back to like, really striving to or like really hitting it too, and Humphreys has always been playing. I mean, they're juggernauts. But you also look at Disco Biscuits making they're coming back and they're playing great from what I've been told, from people going to shows too. So you have them that are touring right now, but yeah, there's these other bands that are coming through the mix, and yeah, just like Eggy and just like and Dogs in a Pile really killing it, playing all over the place. It's different for sure, and I think I like that. I like that there's another option. I just think that's what it's about. Like I always tell people, I'm like, you know, um, it'd be such a bummer if like, you went to a buffet and it's like, and it only was like, meatballs and pasta in every single tray. You know what I mean? It's like,
Shrimp
it's nice.
cocktail.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. From cocktail and spaghetti and meatballs, I'd be like, oh God. But that's why like, it's good when you go and you have like, you got Mexican food, you got fusion food, you got Asian food, you got Jamaican food or Creole or any it's like, there's so many different palettes and I think music is the same way. And right now what's happening in the jam band scene, it is becoming even more like singer-songwriter too. They're seeing the importance of that too. And I think you also have, there's a lot of competition, and I don't mean it to be competition, but it is, people are noticing who's doing really new progressive stuff, and other people want to jump on that.
Yeah.
And it's just pushing the envelope so much. Everyone's pushing the envelope, and there's just so many good bands like Big Something. Love those guys. I've always loved those guys. Magic Beans has been crushing it. If you haven't checked them out, Eminence Ensemble out of Denver. Those guys are fantastic, dude. But we just had this band Swerve out of Colorado come on tour and play our boat cruise weekend that we did, and there's just and they're like unbelievable. I mean, there's all these bands, One Time Weekend, fantastic bands. So You have, and so many different flavors, you know, and I think that's really, really cool. I just love that there is kind of a new wave of it because it's gonna rejuvenate the scene. It's gonna rejuvenate everything, you know. So it's people got options, that's for sure, man.
Well, yeah, and it's also going to attract a younger crowd too. Like you're going to have that next generation of fans, not just next generation of bands, but you're going to have fans that come along with that, and that's what you need, you know?
To just like freshen it up, and it's cool to see certain people go to shows and they'll bring their friends and their friends like, oh, whatever. They go to the show and then that friend's like, that was some shit. And then next thing you know, like you see them either on social media or down the road and like they got like their t-shirts and they're like, oh yeah, when you play that song, you know what I mean? Like watching people get hooked on jam band stuff is so much fun. Or like shows or a band, you know? Like I went to the Parcels show at Red Rocks and there was just so many people in their outfits and like it was such a fashionista expression for people too, which I thought was so inspiring. And you could just see people really like not only that but like their whatever their preferences might be, or you know, it was just new music is offering that new wave of like, you know, it's almost like the late 60s. It's like there's a freshness, it's like
Mhm.
let new things happen, and it's been beautiful to watch.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good comparison. Absolutely. So then we kind of after Borderland, we went to what was the next then festival that we had?
Good question. They're kind of blending.
Yeah, right.
Um,
Cooler in the Mountains was last weekend. Long Con's coming
uh,
up.
we Cooler in the Mountains is coming up this weekend. Uh,
Okay.
yeah, we went from that. We had Sterling Stage actually, which is a smaller festival that we headlined, which was a fantastic one. Our buddies from Feng Shui are in that one. And that's a super, super fun festival. We also in July we also did Dead of Summer in Manchester, Vermont, which was great. That was Neighbor, us. We also were joined that day with our buddies that were barely dead, and they jam. Oh man, do they jam. And that was really cool. EQX was there hosting, and it was like Fiddlehead was sponsoring, and it was this beautiful, beautiful, like it's a flat layout, so it's a big open grassland, but you could also go back out to your car and you could like, and your cars are right there, smaller festival, but you could go to your cars right there if you want to like cook out or like drink your beers there, like have a tailgate. You can have a tailgate. A lot of these festivals, like it's like you can't bring anything in, or like also to get to your campsite so far away. So once you get in there, like you're spending a lot of money and everything like that. And obviously, like people were buying things at Dead of Summer too, but it was like it just I think it helped people feel more comfortable, you know. And it was this big open field with these big rolling mountains, and that was in Manchester, Vermont. And Dead of Summer was great. They treated us fantastic. The production was great there. We got to hang out with the Neighbors guys. We hadn't seen them for a long time and everything. So
So
that was
good.
really cool.
Yeah, Neighbor is so good. They're from what, like Massachusetts?
Yep. Yeah. The New England area. Yep. All really nice guys. And then the next day we actually played. So I have a side project which is called Quantum Cosmic, and that's a super improv, total improv band. But we did it as like an underground kind of Annie in the Water show featuring one of my band members, Ted Gray of Raisinhead and Quantum Cosmic on the stage. So we actually opened up the festival because there was contractual things. We couldn't be called Annie in the Water. So we had it be Quantum Cosmic, but it was pretty much an Annie in the Water show featuring, you know, Ted Gray.
Yeah.
And we played that, and that was with Dopapod and Lotus headlining, along with Wild Adriatic and Formula Five. So some big bands in the capital region. And that was on this big stage that faces these big steamboats, you know. So we played our first set, and I was there with you know, a girl that I was with at the time, and we were able to have like a really nice night. Like we were just able to watch the show together and have a nice day. And that also the that was in Lake George, and same area that the Moral Meltdown was. And the steamboat there, Luke Dow just takes such good care of the bands. He takes such good care of us. It feels very comfortable being there, and the turnout was absolutely incredible. it was packed out, and just the vibes were terrific. Even all the vendors were like selling out of their shit. It was just like success in all kind of avenues.
Yeah.
Was, so we had that, which was great. Yeah, we and it's like we've been playing so many more because last year we didn't play a lot of festivals, and this year we actually played a lot more festivals. So it's like recalling them is, it's like also it's the summer. It's like everything's been a whirlwind, Like and then we just did Brew York, which was in the North Country, and that was one of the best turnouts they've ever had. And that was a really special evening. And I was kind of talking about that before, raising money for a good cause, and right on the Lake Ontario, which is where I used to bring my dog to go swim and like all the time. So very nostalgic for me. And that was just such a beautiful festival with Mike Powell playing in the Echo Sound, also Strictly Hip, which is a Tragically Hip cover band. And that was a really powerful day. It was what they've done, what Brew York has done over there in Watertown to bring a festival to an area that of like rock bands and jam bands that's a very that doesn't happen up there. And they're using the beautiful landscape up there, the community, and people turned out, and it was a phenomenal turnout. So everybody that's part of that Brew York team, they've done such a good job, such a good job too. So, and
Yeah.
we had in like 2-3 days before that, we played a last minute day festival with High Peaks Canna, which was Sophista Funk, and then Vinny from Mo was playing with also Nick from Nth Power, along with his bass player, which was just Nate Egger, it was just so sick. It was, oh my gosh. And then Sophista was playing it too, and Rich Ortiz, local guy to Saratoga Springs. So yeah, and then and from that, we're really really stoked for I'm also going to be showing up at a couple other things I can't really talk about to perform, but we also have another big festival that we're currently working with in October, which is going to be a national acts festival, which we're really excited about, which is more in line with like the yoga and kind of spiritual kind of like community, which would be really nice. That's in October, but we can't announce it. But the big one we're really looking forward to is that Borderlands show. I mean, that is by far like the largest bill we've ever had. You got Black Crows and Camp on it, and Corey Wong and Sierra Farrell. And I mean, we were so excited about that festival. We're thinking about coming out a day early and just being there all day Friday, hanging out Saturday. And then we have to go to Woodstock to go to the Bethel Music and Arts Center the next morning. But yeah, I mean, playing at Borderlands is just like, we're just so stoked about it, man. It's by far the largest bill that we've ever been on. We've been on national jam band bills, big bands, but like Borderlands, I mean, these are really heavy hitters, international players. So it's pretty incredible to be included on Borderlands, man. We're so stoked about it.
So do you have a pretty good crew then coming with you for that then?
Yeah, we have our crew as for like our band and who's going to help us. We're still kind of solidifying that right now, but we've been having people from, because we just also played with Spafford, which we were talking about before the interview, but which was great. Played at Lincoln Hill Farms in Canandaigua, awesome venue. And a lot of people there are already planning on going to Borderlands too. So which we gained a lot of new fans there, and we've been having people from all over the Northeast talk about Borderlands. So we're really excited to see what comes of that. We're looking forward to seeing what happens with it. What our set's going to pull. We're playing early in the day, but like we have a lot of people in that area of Buffalo and that area that are going too. So it's pretty interesting how that's going to play out. We've had a lot of people tell us they're going, so we're hoping for the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, that it's going to be something, I think. So you kind of mentioned about a girlfriend and a relationship. I think a lot of the audience probably would love to know, like being in a band and being in a touring band, like how hard it is to keep like relationships, like either romantic or like you said, trying to spend time with family and friends.
Yeah, it's I think it really depends on the level of, time and energy you're putting on the road. also your preferences of, your partnerships and everything like that. Um, and yeah, I think for me personally, there's pushes and pull to it, I'm the type of person that always wants to contribute as much as I can, and so I think in certain relationships I've given as much as I can, but then there can be either a burnout or certain things like that happens, which I don't obviously want. But I think in my own philosophy is, um, I think what I'm looking for is somebody that can really complement that really well. Some people, they can find that, their person likes to be home waiting for them to come back, and that's good for them. Some people, they like to have their kids and family on the road. And for some people, their partner just loves to go to shows and be at all the shows and travel with them and everything like that too. So it really depends on the connection and the agreement that you have with your partner. Um, and but it's not easy. It's definitely a not easy. And I think for myself personally, I've been seeing through relationships and seeing what is something that really complements myself, but also that I can complement as well. And I think that would be I'm a fairly independent person, but also an independent woman that can also, has her own business going and has her own kind of things going on, that she can be confident in herself. She can go and walk the places and have just as much kind of bravado and importance, if you will. Or I don't really, importance isn't really the word, but like confidence and kind of charisma, I guess you could say, that I do, or just supports me. But like we both have that ability, it's and that's like something I get closer and closer and closer to every time. But and that's my own personal experience. But as for the road, like I've made many sacrifices. There's been really wonderful girls that I've met that it came down to me either being home more or me committing to being on the road more. And but those sacrifices have allowed not only myself to be on the road for that, but that also for that former partner to find what they truly were seeking too, and maybe I was able to show them certain things they like, but and then it goes right into the songs, it always goes back in the songs. But yeah, having a family and being on the road is not for the faint of heart, but like I said, if you know yourself and you respect your partner and allow them to also equally contribute or communicate, there's an opportunity that you have to build a unique lifestyle. You have a unique future for your children, a unique way of life, community and culture. And that's something that, I'm getting that point of being like, well, that's something that's important for me. Before, for all those years, it was my guys and my band and where we had to go and what network and relationship I had to build, or where I had to go to meet the right person. And that's what it was, and I think after, like I said, my dog passed away and things are changing, you start to, prioritize differently. So, like I said, it's challenging, but there's always going to be something that complements that, just like the bandmates that I have now, like that took a very long time to acquire, so I see that. And the dog that I had was the best dog I could have had in the world. You know what I mean? And it took me until I was in my 20s to finally have that kind of connection with the dog. And it finally took, a decade to have the bandmates that I like too,
Yeah.
So everybody's got their own path, you know what I mean? Their own love languages and everything like that. So it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I had a bulldog Shih Tzu mix. It was bullshit.
Yeah. Nice. Solid. Solid. Put that back pocket. It's what was that from?
Huh?
What movie was that from?
I think that's from Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was shit. Oh yeah, that's right. Totally. Totally. My God.
Uh,
The other day. He's like, next thing you know, she sends me a John Deere letter about how I wasn't, listening enough. He's like, I don't really know. I wasn't really paying attention. It's like, that is such a ridiculous movie.
It's funny because I was just listening to a podcast today, and Nick Swartzen was on, and
Oh,
he was talking about this story that he was the first time he went to the Aspen Comedy Festival. This was in '99, I think he said, or '97. And he said I've never been to Aspen, but apparently it's a really small town. So like if
Yeah,
you're walking through the town, like you're pretty much hearing anything that's going on in town.
yeah.
Yes.
Aspen, like it's like the square and then the mountains right there. It's a very tight, squared out town. Yeah.
Yeah, so he said he's leaving, like he's leaving the club like that he had just performed at, and he hears this like really loud like yelling like behind him. And here it's Chris Farley without a shirt on doing cartwheels in the snow down the middle of the street in Aspen.
Oh man, that sounds totally, totally on point. That absolutely had to happen. Oh my God, yeah. I love Chris Farley, dude. My whole family loves Chris Farley.
Yeah, and his brother is the CEO of Ford.
Are you serious? Oh, I did not know that.
His brother is, yeah, he's look it up. His name, I think Brian Farley, I think his name is.
No way.
Yeah.
I'll do that when we're done. Yeah. Oh my God, Brian.
Yeah. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So I want to talk about we talked about that destination, but I want to talk about why we named our first live album Live Wee Woo Volume One. Was this your idea or was this Brad's idea?
No, it wasn't anybody in the band's idea. It was we so to be fair, I think that happened during a particular hangout at a particular show that I might not have been present for because some of these awakenings happen when I'm not a part of it. Um, Sometimes I'm there for the late night things, but I'm not there all the time for the late night stuff.
Okay.
And I I don't know what it was. So there's certain things I just can't speak on because I wasn't present. But I think it originated during some sort of hangout late night. But then one of the guys that was a fan of ours and still is, and a good friend of ours too, that a big hiking buddy of mine. His name is Bruce, and I just remember him starting out like after a while, he would just be at the show and go wee woo wee woo, and like and then like people in the crowd started like picking up on it. So then like our fans that were coming out to shows would just be like wee woo wee wee. Like it was like this like chant that they would get into, and even then the kid Bruce made this sticker of our keyboard player as a cartoon character that said wee woo on it, and we had done this show in it was in Potsdam, New York, and we were supposed to play outside, but it was raining like hell. So they brought us into this church, and it was just like an offshoot day, and like we had like people there. It wasn't like it was full. It was pretty, there's a good amount of people there, but it wasn't like packed out or anything. But we played from like I don't know, like 6 to 8 o'clock. Actually, might have been like even 5 to 7 or something. But we played on a church. We played like on a altar of a church, and it just sounded so good. And so we were just, and I think we listened back to it, and everybody was like, because the guy who's doing the show there, he mixed it for us, and then and it sounded like really good. The guy who was the sound engineer that day was like, it sounded phenomenal. And so we were like, all right, well, maybe we just, like I didn't even know it was being recorded. If I did, I probably wouldn't have had so much delay on my friggin' guitar, but whatever.
Well, dude, River on that album, River is really, really good. Like you guys talk about like, I mean, that song is fucking so good.
I'm glad. Yeah, we I think it was like it might have been my bass player or somebody else that was like, "Yo, have you like listened to River on that?" And I was like, "No, I haven't like really." He's like, "Yeah, listen to." Yeah, it was my bass player. He's like, "You should listen to what we got into." There's a part that him and I like were like literally like hitting something that on it totally like it's just like one of those random things where like you never practice it, but you play this line, you just like sync up. And him and I synced up like so much, but I didn't even know when it was happening live until we got the recording on the back end. And you're like, wow, that's so really good, like special performance in its own way. And then so we listened to it, and we were like, should we just release it as a live album? And so we're like, yeah. And then everyone was like, well, what should we call it? And they're like, what about Wee Woo Volume 1? We're like, well, yeah, that makes sense. And we are trying to think of a cover, and then Brock showed this picture of him in his bathtub with all these bubbles. So we are like, yeah, that probably checks out. So we had that be the cover. So we haven't done a live Wee Woo 2 yet because we are going to be working with a streaming service, which we can't say just yet, but a big streaming service. So we're compiling a lot of our live stuff to get ready for that. So you'll see that. You'll see something happening. You're going to see a lot more interesting things happening in the fall with not only a new album, but another new streaming service that we're going to be doing as well. So we've got some cool things coming up the funnel, if you will.
Yeah, I guess volume I'm hearing a lot about. A lot of artists are using volume. Obviously, Nugs is the biggest one, right?
Yeah.
What else? What other sites are out there? What other options are there?
Well, there's another there the bigger ones is what we're going to be working with, but there's another one that just reached out to us, which is a streaming site that was hoping that we might even look into doing some sort of like beta testing for. And I can't remember what the name is, but I mean, but also there's like the standard, like, I mean, really it's like making sure that Spotify and YouTube are good and getting your playlists going and things like that on Spotify is important. But I mean, yeah, there's so many options, you know what I mean? Like having your stuff on Bandcamp and archives. We've got some old stuff on archives that some people still listen to this day. You know, we've got some hardcore fans they'll pull up an archive show of like a Paradise Rock Club back when we played a long time ago and be like, what about this song? Why don't you play this? You know, there's so many songs we just don't play anymore, and or they've morphed or amalgamated into something else, but people want that version of that song from like 8 years ago. So it's yeah, there's so many streaming services. So well, but you'll see an announcement coming up in a few months and stuff, and a new album coming out too, which like I said, it's in the mastering process. So and Wee Woo Volume 2 will be coming out at some point too. Yeah. uh,
So, yeah, like we kind of talked about this earlier, but I want to get your thoughts on this. So, you know, you see so many bands and artists now because of the algorithms, because of like again, mostly financially reasons. You see bands releasing singles and like putting out EPs and not releasing as much, you know, and when they do release an album, it's like 8 songs. It's not, you know, 12 or 15 songs.
yeah.
How much important is that to you guys as a band to release albums, or do you kind of have to play the game too?
Well, you know, we have released singles, which are leading up to a full length album. So the full length album that we have it's a full length album. It's a solid 10 songs, and we even chop some songs. But we personally we really still like to stick with having a full length album from a creative standpoint and also like a chronological standpoint. It helps us as artists to know what our focus is in that time, to know what our capabilities are, what our songwriting style is. You know, if we were to do an EP, it's kind of like a flash in a barrel. But if you do a full length album, you really have to reach into your creative bag, and like also you want to curate the album, you know, and just like our set list, like everybody is very meticulous on what our set list looks like and what our album looks like. And the new album, it's like, you know, you can brand there, and there's just to kind of like piggyback off that, you want to have the branding, you want to have the artwork, and the artwork wants to go with that, and it's important, and I'm not shitting on that, but it's like there's just almost like so much of that being bombarded at people that it's it's like trying to find, it's like just try and get the content out and just get it out, you know, like put it in and get it out, put it in, get it out, put it in, get it out, put it in, get it out. And it's like, how much can you curate really with that mentality? You know, it kind of makes you want to just, what's the next thing? Are you going to do, what do you got to do next? What do you got to do next? And we still, while we're recording the album, been also writing on the road and writing songs and touring. So we're still keeping our relevancy very much modernized and relevant, you know. Um, but the album itself, there's just songs that you just don't want to omit. There's something that's so important to a set, or something that's so important to an emotional experience that somebody in the band went through, or that's so important to a feeling that somebody has in the band, or it's so important to like also the creative context of what the whole album looks like, you know. All of us really want to design an album as an experience. You know, our bass player, he's actually been getting into doing DJing with vinyl DJ. And you know that, and we've been going back to even listening to records, and like, and the importance of listening to records and the record experience. And it kind of comes full circle, that story thing that we're talking about. Like, the album's a story, you know. Like, we're not trying to have something be a fad, you know, or be like the sick jam on that. And like, jams are great, don't get me wrong, that's super important, you know. Um, but like the songs itself, we'd like those to be curated in a way that we really put our hearts and minds into what that was. And it was done meticulously, and it was done with intention. It was done with an idea in mind and a vision in mind, so that the listener can hopefully feel that and hopefully get that response. And there's nothing wrong with doing EPs. There's nothing wrong with doing singles. We used singles to move into this new album. So I'm not here to be a hypocrite or anything, but yeah, I think there's just so much that people focus on with the branding of an album, and having the artwork to be perfect. And you do these 4 songs and the EP hits like that, or your single and the artwork, and sell the merchandise with it and everything. And it's which is super important. Also, not and it's not negative by any means at all. It's a process, and it's making money. And I think that's incredibly important to make your band float. So I'm not shitting on any of these things. And I also recognize the importance of all these things. But I think what we've chosen to do is really to put the music as much in the forefront, and curating it, and listening to it, and trying to get the fidelity that we wanted, and really just try to grow and mature in our sound and our songwriting process and our studio process. We didn't want to rush it. We didn't want to flash and pan it. And I and that's where our intention was, and that's where it is for this new album. And just like what we said with setlist, you know, our set lists are the same way. Like, how is the set list of the show going to build an experience that can cater to that experience in a very unique way? And it's really having an intention of what you want to, how different or unique do you want to have it? You know, we're putting more jams as segues into our songs than we ever did before. We're allowing more space for shows to happen. Mm-hmm. And the new album is definitely a new step forward for us in many different ways. So the full length album is very much important for us as a band. We're going back into studio after the album goes out. We're back in studio in like a month and a half later, working on another one with a producer that we've really been looking forward to working with. So yeah, just it's just it's like a piece of art, you know what I mean? Like, you know, it's if it's done, we're in the philosophy and the thought that it'll sell, or it'll go, or it'll do what it needs to do if the product is solid itself. Mm-hmm. We don't want to make something that's, you know, half-assed and put a shitload of money into promotion or, you know, and media on it. You know what I mean? We want things to be fundamentally as best as we can possibly do it. And by no means are we perfect or this incredible, unbelievable, amazing band. It is our process of getting better. It is our process of mastering our craft. It is our process as growing and connecting as a band. And that's a story that becomes something. And we're not trying to overinflate it. We're not trying to undermine it or you know, undersell it at all either. It's just our experience and what we're trying to do. And the full length album helps us to tell that story. I think it's a clear story. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So you've toured a long, long time. You've got to have at least one good horror story about being on the road, whether it was a venue that didn't pay you, whether the van broke down, something happened. You don't have to give names or venue names, but I know you got a story in there somewhere, right?
Yeah. Oh, lots of them, man. I mean, a lot of them are usually like, you know, car breakdowns or something, like it's cold or it's late and people are tired, and then something happens and you have to do something extra, like those are the worst, like that people don't understand. It's like sometimes you traveled all day, you played a show, and your car broke down in the middle of the night, and everyone's fucking stranded, and nobody can really sleep. You don't have a home to go to. You don't have a safe sanctuary. You're at a fucking rest area on whatever throughway at 3 in the morning, not able to go to sleep yet because you're Ubering to some sort of motel or whatever you can get or afford, or a friend's room, or if that, you stay through the night and you stay awake all night and you just get it fixed, or you find something else you drive. We've had there's a lot of different horror stories. I think probably the worst one that we've had recently was it was huge snowstorm hit on our way coming back from Colorado. Our transmission blew out literally backing directly into our gig at Rochester, and it was cold. It was a cold night too. Like after it had been like warm and nice, this was the cold night. We were all exhausted after Colorado, and we had just played it, and we still had another show in Syracuse with this impending massive storm coming through, and we had to the transmission blew out, and after the show we had to perform at Rochester, headline that, pack up all our stuff at 1 o'clock in the morning, drive all the way back to Saratoga Springs to pick up another bus at 8 a.m. in the morning. So myself and Brad had to stay up all night driving all the way across 90 to get the bus. And I think we maybe slept for like 45 minutes or something, grab the bus, drive that all the way back to Rochester, grab the band, grab the hitch, and then drive again an hour north to Syracuse to play the show. And we played the show. And then after the show, we anticipated staying. And then the storm shifted and got way worse. I had gone to bed, but the rest of the band woke me up about 2 hours later at 3 in the morning. So they had all stayed up, and they were like, "Hey man, this storm is actually looking way, way worse. We actually got to go. We're still going to drive through the storm, but we're going to be fucked. Like we're going to be like in." They had projected like a foot of snow, and it was like it had already gotten to a foot of snow, and the projections like we're saying now like 3 feet of snow. So we drove all through the night. So what would have been a 2 hour drive took 6 hours on the got back. Nobody could sleep on the bus because it was terrible weather and we were nervous, but we were all hanging, but in a way, like we still like had fun with it. You know what I mean? Like in our own weird way. And then the next day, like we got back and everyone was so blown out and being up for like 2 days straight, practically 2.5 days straight, practically. And we still had a headlining show in Albany, but the weather was still not great. And it was like, do we cancel it? Do we not cancel it? And talking with the vendor or the venue owner, and then the band opening, and I was just up for so long, and like your just adrenals are blown out, you're so like disoriented. So then finally we just decided, because we didn't want to cancel because we didn't want people to be upset, and we had people already drive out there, but we're like, we got to cancel, man. It's a liability too if people drank at the show and then they come out in some massive slush and snowstorm aftermath. Even if it's the aftermath, it's a super dangerous situation for our fans. It's a lot of like not the smart and safe calls. So we called the show, and after that everyone just fucking crashed out. But it was just like you're up for so long sometimes, or like just things happen that are uncomfortable, and somebody makes it. I've been on the road, I've been fucking blown out and off sorts of sideways before, and other people in the band have done it before. So there's so many, there's so many, but there's so many good stories too, there's so many good ones too. And like, it's a horror story. Like you get through it. It's like you become stronger in a way and you bond more. So it's like, as much as a horror story might be, it's like you all survive. At least you survive it. So it's not like, Brock trips on himself like 3 times and gets murdered on the, it's like Brock is dead. Oh no. They killed Kenny, you know what I mean? Like
They killed Kenny, you bastards.
Brock.
Well, Mr. Michael, I really appreciate you taking the time to do this interview. Yeah, this has been great. Much love, the best of luck to you guys. Yeah, and I hope to see you at Borderland in a couple weeks, my friend.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Make sure you come and say this up. And this is such a pleasure. I'm always happy and to do that. And I appreciate what you do, and to obviously your sponsor and everything. It's very kind. Appreciate the production. And yeah, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, my friend.
Sounds good, my friend. Well, ladies and gentlemen, again, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe to our YouTube channel, our social media pages. That helps us. That helps Mr. Michael and Annie in the water. Also, check out our sponsor, RAR Outfitters, RAWR, outfitters.com. Don't just wear, RAR. And as always, ladies and gentlemen, I've been Dogg. You've been great. This is the Music Lab Podcast.